Good morning, all. Welcome to this 10-day Gyan course. In this session, we will have an understanding and a demonstration on a rheometer, which is a modular compact rheometer. Okay, so the instrument is a rheometer, and basically you can conduct a diverse range of tests and diverse range of parameters for different variety of food products to get different data which can be useful for your research or for your any industrial applications also. Okay, are you familiar with the concept of rheology, what it is? Yes, all of you? Okay, so rheology, as we say, when you apply any force on any product or any sample, how the material deforms or how the viscosity and all the flow parameters or properties change. It is the study of those properties. Okay, so if you see or if you understand the properties of lot of food based materials, they are not uniform because food is combined of a different biomolecules. You have carbohydrates or polysaccharides, proteins, and all these compounds is a combination of all these things. So that's how your properties of these different compounds will ultimately affect the properties of food, and these properties are strongly linked to your viscosity or rheology. If you see, are directly associated with your sensory parameters, or how food will taste, how the mouthfeel will be, how the texture will be. So that is why the study of rheology becomes very important when it comes to food processing. It is not just the texture and sensory, all these things. When it goes for processing also, you have different, because when any product undergoes processing, in that processing also the food product or sample will experience a lot of forces. Okay, it will be pumped from one a pipe, or it will be subjected to extrusion, these kind of properties. In this, when you subject any sample or your product to these forces, how different forces will act, and they will change the properties of your food sample. That is has direct relation with this rheology. So when you want to study the rheology, rheometer is the most commonly used instrument in that case. So what it happens in rheometer, simple thing happens that you subject your sample to certain shear rate. Okay, in rheology two things are most important. One is shear stress and another is shear rate. Okay, so under applied shear rate, how the shear stress or the how the apparent viscosity will change. Okay, depending on that we study or we classify different food materials. You classify them as shear thinning or shear thickening. As the name suggests, shear thinning means once you applied the shear rate, what will happen? The viscosity will decrease with increasing shear rate. That is nothing but your shear thinning. Exact opposite are the shear thickening, where under applied shear rate or shear stress, what will happen? The apparent viscosity of that sample will increase. Okay, so it has as I explained before, it has a diverse applications in food, where your sensory properties, or for example, one the recent example I would give here, you would see the extrusion, or have you come across how 3D food printing works? So 3D food printing is nothing but you extrude your sample through a small nozzle, and then it will construct a product layer by layer. So in that context also, food will be subjected to stress and it will be forced through a nozzle. In that case also, your rheological properties play a very important role. Now you have measured or you have understood how the material will behave. You will get one graph with respect to shear rate and shear stress, or apparent viscosity against shear rate. Okay, based on that you can classify, as I said before, shear thinning or shear thickening. Now what you all the data that you get from this, there are different rheological models. Okay, if you have heard Newton's model, or if you have heard of Herschel-Bulkley model, these are the different models which basically try to establish a relationship between these two parameters. Okay, based on the material behavior, you can try to fit the data that you have got into any of these models, and that model will try to explain or predict the behavior of any viscoelastic material. Viscoelastic, why I am saying, because most of the products or the food products which you all observe will show viscoelastic behavior. It will show the properties of viscous, that is, viscosity is nothing but a property of liquids, and elasticity is nothing but the property of solids. So the semi-solid product that, or most of the food product, will exhibit this kind of behavior. So that is why what happens, the instrument that you can see on the inside, it is a modular compact rheometer. Okay, so what will happen, it has a plate, okay, and a platform. What will happen, you will place your sample between the plate and platform. There are also different configurations of plates available, like you have a parallel plate or cone plate. Their diameter also will vary. Okay, so what will happen, based on your product, you will select what platform or what things are configuration you have to select, and then you will subject your sample to the rheological test. What you will get data in terms of shear stress against shear rate. That range also you can set depending on your product. Okay, depending on the apparent viscosity of that particular product, you can set the range of the shear rate. Then what will happen, after the test is completed, what you will do, you will get the data that you will try to fit into available rheological models, and based on that you will be able to predict the behavior of your sample. Okay, this is related to the rheology, or this is one application of your modular compact rheometer. Okay, the another application or another accessory that comes with this instrument is a starch cell. Okay, that entirely gives a different set of data, but it is linked with the viscosity only. So this is about rheology. If you have any doubt, anyway we will have the demonstration where you will closely be able to see how to set the different parameters, how to select the probe or the platform and all these things. So all these things you can do. Another thing that can be added into this is the temperature related. So because viscosity is also temperature dependent, so you can set a different temperature gradient, and according to that also you can see how the viscosity will vary. This is of particular importance if you have some product like based on gelatin and all. So gelatin will melt at one particular temperature, and then you will be able to pour it or anything. So if you are making any particular product which needs, you have to study how the properties of viscosity will behave with respect to temperature, that also you can do with this kind of instrument. Okay, so in this particular rheology or viscosity kind of application, does anyone have any doubt? You can ask, and then we will proceed with the another starch or the rapid visco analysis of it. Anyone has any doubt?
So like in texture profile analysis, we used to get hardness,
yes,
springiness like that. By using this, we can get elasticity range. Can we get any elasticity range like that?
Elasticity range you can do. There is for any viscoelastic material, there will be a linear viscoelastic region. Okay, so that particular sample will behave in a linear way with respect to applied forces. So that you can do. Later on you can change the angular frequency sweep and all this. These are a little advanced, because in rheology also there are two types basically. The fundamental classification involves static rheology and dynamic rheology. So what we did so far is by varying the shear rate, by observing the viscosity or the shear stress, is the part of the static rheology. Okay, there is another advanced version of it, that is dynamic rheology, where your forces will vary in a particular frequency range, and from that you can predict. There are a lot of other properties also, like you have one parameter that that is called as a storage modulus and loss modulus. Okay, these are linked with elasticity and viscosity. So once you have done your steady state rheology, you can go for dynamic tests performing. With that you will get your storage modulus and loss modulus. From that you can predict that how your material is there. If you are having more storage modulus, then it is more viscous. Based on that you can find out different properties. So the fundamental one that we will be doing today is the steady state rheology. By varying the shear rate, we will observe the apparent viscosity and we will observe the shear stress. Okay, so linear viscoelastic and even dynamic properties like your storage modulus and loss modulus, same instrument can help. Okay, this is a modular compact rheometer. It is manufactured by Anton Par. Okay, so there are a lot of different models. Each comes with more advanced model means it will have the capability to test all the parameters. Some comes with only shear stress, like that on all these things. Okay, anyone else have any doubts?
So this machine used only for time independent viscosity, like only you say well, only dilatant and pseudoplastic. Then other than that,
Thixotropic.
and Rio,
That also can be studied. Yes,
time
yes,
dependent.
yes. That software and all will have the which test you want to perform. According to that, you can set the parameters and you can study the behavior in this also. Yes, it can be done in this, because this is I don't know whether from which model, because there are right from, I think, I don't know the exact model, but MCR 52 is the basic one. Then you will have advanced versions of it. So which model will have that specific capabilities, that I'm not very sure, but this one will have, we have to check, but it does have that.
So as you mentioned before, there is two type. One is starch cell and another one is parallel plate. How to choose based on your product you mentioned?
Yes.
So if mine is a dough like texture, which kind of criteria should I select?
See, both tests or the both test will basically show different results. Now what you want to understand, based on that you will understand. Now does anyone have any doubt with the rheology? Then I'll go with starch cell, then later on we'll compare. Okay, so starch cell is basically to study the behavior of starches, because anything that has starch will show two most important behavior. One is gelatinization, another is retrogradation, right? So gelatinization is what, in presence of moisture and in presence of temperature, it will adopt the moisture, it will swell, its viscosity will increase. Then it will go to one specific viscosity. Once you bring down the temperature, what will happen? Your amylose and amylopectin chains will reassociate and it will undergo retrogradation. Okay, so these two parameters, or the extent of gelatinization and extent of retrogradation, are very important, because if you see in extrusion, which is nothing but again a hydrothermal treatment, because you are using water as well as you are using heat. Okay, so what will happen in that case? Also gelatinization will happen and retrogradation will happen. Once, if for example, if you consider a product that has a starch which has a tendency to undergo higher retrogradation means what? You will get a harder texture in your product. Now instead of developing an entire product and then understanding whether my product is going for higher texture or it is getting more hardness or fracturability, it is a tedious process. If you are able to predict these properties beforehand, in that case your starch cell, or it is also called as a rapid viscoanalysis, or in some cases you might have observed it as a pasting properties. Okay, so that is what a starch cell will do. What will happen? That there is a standard protocol developed for this. What will happen? You will take your sample, which will nothing but will be a powdered sample. Flour, any kind of flour or any kind of starch that you might have extracted, or any starch that you would have modified with some enzymes and all this thing. Because if you see, starch modification has a huge role in food industry, because starch modified of different levels and different modified starch, maybe from potato, this that will have different applications. Have you seen jam, right? In jam you will use pectin, right, to set the jam. Have you seen fruit fillings? Fruit fillings are nothing but the product that you see on your cake, like blueberry filling and all this thing. Their texture and this texture are different. Okay, why? Because that use a specific type of modified starch. Okay, these kind of diverse range of textures that you will observe will depend on how the starch is modified. So that way, modification of starch or understanding the behavior of starch is very important. If you modify starch with any enzyme or any other physical treatment also, what will happen? Its properties will change, and how you will understand which properties have changed, you will use this technique. What will happen? You will take a powdered sample, either it can be a flour or it can be a starch extracted from any or modified starch, whatever it is. A specific quantity you will take. you will mix in the specific quantity of water. You will prepare a homogeneous mixture. Then you will subject to the heating and cooling. Basically it has a heating and cooling program that is set beforehand. What will happen from initial temperature? It will go to 45 degrees. Then it will 45 or 50. I'm not sure, but it will go to that temperature. Then it will heat it up to 95 degrees. Okay. Then it will hold it at 95 degrees Celsius for some time. Then it will again cool it down to 45 degrees Celsius. So in this heating and cooling, how your starch properties, particularly viscosity, because starch is mainly used for thickening or viscosity purpose. So that is why we are observing only the viscosity. Okay, so how viscosity, again with this temperature and presence of moisture, with this temperature ramp, how it will vary. So based on that you can correlate the properties. Okay, you have one native starch maybe extracted from potato, then you have modified it with some enzymes or physical treatment. How the properties will vary, how will you assess? Based on these properties. So what you will do, you will take a starch sample, along with that you will add a water, you will prepare a homogeneous solution, then you will subject it to heating and cooling. Then what will happen in the initial stages, as the heating is going on, what will happen? Starch will absorb more and more moisture. So more and more moisture it will absorb means what will happen? The viscosity will keep on increasing. Okay, that means the gelatinization happening. Okay, after that what will happen? Once the gelatinization is completed, then what will happen? It will again start losing water, because starch grain will swell, and then again it will burst. What will happen? The moisture it has absorbed, it will start losing. Then when it is maintained at 95 degrees Celsius, during that time its viscosity will start decreasing. Then what will happen? When the cooling will start, what will happen? When the cooling starts, your retrogradation will start taking place. So then retrogradation will start means what? Reassociation of your amylose and amylopectin molecules will happen. And what will happen? It will viscosity will again start increasing. So from this one test, this test nearly takes 20 to 25 minutes for one sample. Okay, so with this test you will get around 7 to 8 different properties. Okay, so you will get a pasting temperature. Pasting temperature is directly analogous with your gelatinization temperature. Same results you can compare from this, whatever pasting temperature you have got. Another, to study the thermal behavior of any sample, what we use? Differential scanning calorimetry. You can actually compare those two results. Okay, so if whatever gelatinization temperature I am getting, based on that whether it is coming exactly in the differential scanning calorimetry. So like that you will have a pasting temperature, then you will have a peak viscosity. Once the heated it goes, to what extent my starch will get gelatinized, it will define by the peak viscosity. Then you will have a setback viscosity or final viscosity. So you will get a viscosity against time, you will get curve. So based on that you can find out how my starch behaves. If you have got less peak viscosity, means your starch has a less tendency to undergo gelatinization. Okay, or if it has some extra material like fibers are there, or any other things are there, then it will show lesser tendency. If your starch shows higher final viscosity, means it has higher extent of retrogradation. Means what will happen? Your product, after undergoing cooling, it will have it will have more firm texture or hard texture. So all these things, properties, if you have, for example, if you have prepared one blend of different starches and all, so all this you can analyze and you can optimize your product that way. So whenever it comes primarily with starch and where your focus is on gelatinization and retrogradation, you will exclusively go for this test. And whether temperature is important for you. If you want to study how your product, if it is semi-solid kind of product, and how it behaves under applied forces and all this, then you will go for rheology. So it gives two different sets of data, two different objectives. Whatever you want to do or whatever your interest is, based on that you will choose whether to go for this or whether to go for this. Sometimes you may need both also. Okay, so today we will see the rheology and all. The starch cell, it takes time, because in the same instrument that you can see the platform, that platform needs to be changed. So that we will do tomorrow. Okay, so in this case, if anyone has any doubt, please you can ask.
Sir, anytime the setback viscosity you said, sir, it have any negative value, sir? for some samples?
No, setback viscosity just it will come down. Viscosity can never be negative, so it will show. But setback viscosity, it's a difference between the trough. There is what you will see the graph. Once you will see the graph, then you will know. You'll get one peak viscosity, then it will come down again, and then it will again rise when the cooling starts. So you will have a peak viscosity, then you will have a trough viscosity. The difference will be a setback viscosity. You should see how it works. I don't remember the exactly formulas because this you also don't have to manually calculate. This the instrument itself will calculate and give you all these properties: setback viscosity, final, trough viscosity, and all these things.
What's the maximum temperature of the instrument?
For this, I think you can go up to 95 degrees Celsius. For if you are doing rapid viscoanalysis or the pasting properties of starch, if you are doing that is a set protocol, it can go up to 95 degrees Celsius. But you should understand one thing, that typically your processing temperatures of any product, particularly for food product, will range in this range only, right? Maximum it can go up to 121. That is in extreme where you are treating your product for sterilization purpose and all. But your typical, or if you are speaking about pasteurization, or if you are speaking about ketchup and all this thing, ketchup are also usually, because it is acidic product, it is usually treated at 90-95 degrees Celsius, not higher than that. So the operational range of instrument is also designed in a way that it will be applicable in case of food, because food also it's not like that metals or plastics that we are treating at 180, 250 and all these things. Usually the treatment range is in this. So the operational temperature of the equipment are of the interest of us. So I think you can proceed with the demonstration for the rheological this.
So good morning everyone. So now that you are clear with the basics of a rheometer, so let's start the demonstration. So this is a modular compact rheometer MCR302E. Here you can see it's written the model number 302E. So it has different parts. So starting first is the air compressor. It will give a sound, a bit of sound in the middle, so no need to get worried. It's a compressor. So first let's start how to switch it on. So first we switch on the air compressor, and here it shows the pressure. So first we wait till it reaches 80. Pressure reaches till 80. Then we switch on the rheometer. It also has a chiller unit for maintaining the temperature. So I was explaining you about we can change the temperature till 90. Here we can change till 120, but for starch and all, maximum for food samples we do it till 90. We don't go above 100 degrees. So this is a chiller unit to maintain the temperature. This rheometer also has 2-3 parts. So this is the head portion, which contains the motor and the sensor. Here we attach the shaft. This is the shaft. This is the shaft which we attach it here, and as sir was telling about cone plate geometry, parallel plate geometry and the starch, so in this we'll attach the cone plate and the parallel plate geometries. And this is the plate which maintains, here we'll keep the sample, and this maintains the temperature. This has a Peltier effect. Peltier effect means it will absorb the heat or release the heat as per the temperature we are giving. Okay, and we have this is about the rheometer, and once the temperature reaches 80, then we start it, and then it shows status okay. Then we open the software. The software is RheoCompass software. So why it is modular compact rheometer? It is modular because it can accommodate different geometries. It can accommodate parallel plate geometry, it can accommodate cone plate, it has a cylindrical one for starch. So that's why it is a modular compact rheometer. So as we start the software, first we need to set the measuring system, because it has two measuring systems. One is the plate geometry, another is the starch plate geometry. So here you can see, we can actually remove this plate and we can change it to a starch cell. So the starch cell will have a cone canister in which we'll put the starch sample, but here we'll put it on a parallel plate. So here are the pipes which we need to change. So today we'll be doing the parallel plate, we'll be seeing the static rheology. So when we place a parallel plate geometry or the start cell, first we need to make sure that we have what we have attached, it's being shown in the software. So first we'll go to the measuring system and we'll check the hardware configuration. It is in auto detect mode now. So we'll select, this is the Peltier plate geometry, so it is PTD. When we attach the starch, it will be ETD. Peltier effect, this has Peltier effect, so it is PTD. And the different geometries I'll show you. So this is a cone plate of 25 mm diameter. This is a cone plate of 25 mm diameter. How you'll know this is a cone plate? You can see the reflection and you can touch and feel it. It has a 2-degree inclination. 25 mm. We have two diameters. One is 25 mm. One is 50 mm. I'll show you the parallel plate also. Yeah, so this is a parallel plate geometry. It's parallel. It's a 50 mm. We also have another one, the same 25 mm for parallel plate also. When we have a very low viscous sample, more of a liquidy sample, then we try to use a parallel plate because cone plate has a inclination. So for viscous samples, we usually use cone plate. So today our sample will be mayonnaise. So we'll be using a cone plate to see the steady state, that is the flow behavior. Okay. So first what we'll do, after switching on, and now we know that we are going to attach the CP25, which is the cone plate 25 mm diameter. We have already selected it. So now the machine knows what we are going to attach to it. So next what we'll do is, we need to initialize the machine. When we are conducting a test, this head will move up and down because this needs to come down so that it will we can keep the sample and it will press the sample and it will start the experiment. So first we need to initialize this, so the head will move to the topmost position of the machine. So first we'll initialize it. Here also we need to check that the cell is PTD to make sure, and the attachment which we'll be putting, it will be CP25. So now it has initialized. It went to the topmost position of the machine. Now this head. Next what we'll do is, we will attach this cone plate geometry to this shaft. So here is a screw, we'll open it and we'll attach it. This is a very small screw, so we need to be very careful with this. Now, if you can see, there is a mark here. If you can see, there is a mark here. Yes. The same mark is there in this. We need to match it and attach it. See, the same mark is here. So we need to match it in parallel. And I'll pull it down. Now it got attached. Okay, I just pulled it down and it got attached. So now what we'll do is first set zero gap. First, the machine needs to know what is the gap between the cone plate and the Peltier plate. Okay, so first we'll do set zero gap. So first it will check the gap. Then we'll put the sample. So in cone plate, there is a certain distance which it will go. It is already preset, 0.1 mm. Till that much only it can go. In parallel plate, it can go up to 1 mm.
And for cold plate, it's going on
0.1 mm.
0.1 mm.
Hmm. So here are the different tests which we can perform. So as we are going to do the static rheology, so it is a flow curve, linear flow curve. So we'll select the test. I just saved it with the name. We need to save the project first. Here are first the temperature is 25. Here it's 22. When we'll start, it will first reach till 25, the temperature of this plate. Then it will start, okay. It has already maintained the gap. Here diagram will come when the output will come. Here are the measurements which we need to give. Like 100 points, it will give 100 points. And from 1 to 100, we'll increase the shear rate. Then it will give the viscosity and yes, it will give the viscosity. How the viscosity changes with the increase in shear rate from 1 to 100 per second, okay. And now it has given the set, now I have already done the set 0. So now we'll increase, we'll take the head up, we'll put the sample. Since it's just a 25 mm dia plate, so we need to give a very less sample. I'll just give it in the middle. As the cone plate comes and touches the sample, it will spread it according to the plate size. So now let's start the test. So first I'll bring the head down. Now after it has pressed the sample, it will show a dialog box that we need to trim the extra sample. Wait for that to show. See, it has. Now trim the sample and press continue. So now we need to trim the sample. We'll use this trimming tool to trim the sample. Now that we have trimmed the sample, we'll press continue. It's already set. It is the preset tests. All the tests are already preset. It already has the dimensions which we need to give it. If you have any precise requirement of it, then you can additionally give it. If you particularly you need for a material which you're testing, you need 1 to 1000, then you can set the parameters to 1 to 1000. Otherwise, we usually run with the pre-given dimensions. Okay. So we'll start the test and give the name. I gave the name for and we'll continue. Now first see the temperature is 22.44, but we are running the test viscosity test at room temperature 25 degree. So first it will make sure that the plate reaches 25, then the test will start. So this is a static rheology test, which means it will give rotational, this is a rotational test. The dynamic one is the oscillatory. Oscillatory means the probe will oscillate. In this, the probe will rotate at a shear rate. In that case, it will oscillate. So in oscillatory, we have two tests. One is amplitude sweep and another one is the frequency sweep. So what does those give? They give the viscoelastic nature of a material. Viscoelastic means it has two parameters again. One is the storage modulus, another is a loss modulus. So storage modulus gives the elastic nature, which means it can store the energy in it, and elastic and the viscous nature means it will dissipate the energy in the form of heat. So it will take up to 100 seconds around. In 1 minute it will reach, and then we can start the test. Yeah, see, it will show two diagrams. One will be shear rate versus shear stress, another one it will give shear rate versus viscosity. It will give 100 points in the range of 100 to, we have increased the shear rate from 1 to 100. So within that it will give 100 points. I'll show you the diagrams for, we'll not be running amplitude and frequency sweep, but I'll show you how the graphs are obtained. So in amplitude sweep, you'll get a LVR region, which is a linear viscoelastic region, in which the G prime and the G double prime, that means the storage modulus and the loss modulus will remain same. Means they won't, they will, when the deformation, when we are giving a force, when we are removing the force, it will regain its original, the structure of the material will remain intact. But after that, after a certain point, means after that LVR region, which is a non-LVR region, non-linear viscoelastic region, after that the structure of the intrinsic viscosity, which is the intrinsic structure of the material, will change. Either the G double prime will increase, which will show a liquidy behavior after the certain point, or the G prime will be more, which will show a more elastic nature. Usually materials have both elastic and viscous nature. So from amplitude sweep, we decide the strain amount within the LVR region, which we'll use for the frequency sweep. In the amplitude sweep, we usually keep the frequency constant, and we see the variation of strain with the variation of storage modulus and loss modulus with the strain values, with the increase in strain. But in frequency sweep, we keep the particular strain value from the LVR region, in which the G prime and G double prime were constant. We give that, and we vary the frequency. It is a time dependent factor. In frequency, we see the behavior according to the time, the behavior of storage modulus and the loss modulus with time. We change the angular frequency. See, this plot is showing the viscosity versus the shear rate. So as I was telling, there are two behaviors. One is shear thickening and one is shear thinning. So this, with increase in the shear rate, the viscosity decreases. This means it's shear thinning. It's showing shear thinning behavior. This is the sound of the compressor. These are the graphs. Usually we take the table and we plot it. So we also get the table where we get the shear rate, the viscosity and the shear stress. Whatever you want to plot, whether you want to show shear rate versus shear stress or shear rate versus viscosity. Now the test is done. It shows the torque and the status of the equipment. we basically need only three things from this: shear rate, shear stress, and the viscosity, which we'll plot. These are the two diagrams which you'll get from this. So we usually take this table and save it, and then we plot it in Excel. You can plot, also we can plot it in Origin. So this was about the static, which is the flow curve, or the, you can say, the rotational test. I'll show you two diagrams of amplitude sweep and a frequency sweep. See, this is the amplitude sweep, in which what we give for measurements. See, here the frequency will be constant in case of amplitude sweep, and we'll give the strain value in percentage. From, you can vary according to your sample. This, the person who has run, he has run from 0.01 to 100%. Like, he has given the strain value, and the angular frequency will be constant. So we'll see one of the diagram. So this is a diagram of an amplitude sweep. See, in this, this is the square ones is the G prime, which is the storage modulus, and the triangular ones are the G double prime. So a very small range, in a very small range, the G prime as well as G double prime was little variation, but G prime was constant in this. So this region we can consider as the LVR region, the linear viscoelastic region. So after that, there was the point where there was a sudden decrease in started for the G prime, that is the storage modulus, that will be your yield point. And there is a point, this point, where your G prime and G double prime both are same value. It is called the crossover point. After that, the G double prime value, which is the loss modulus, increased over the storage modulus. This means it showed a more liquid-like behavior, means the viscous behavior increased rather than the elastic. Before this, the elastic nature was higher, and after a certain point, which is called the crossover strain value, after that, when we increase the strain value, it showed more like a liquid behavior. Before that, it was more of a solid kind of behavior. So this is a plot of amplitude sweep. So from this LVR region, we will select one point. Suppose we select 0.01% strain or 0.1% strain. We'll select and we'll do the frequency sweep test. So I'll show you a diagram for the frequency sweep. In frequency sweep test, here in amplitude sweep, our frequency was constant. We were varying the strain. So here we got the LVR region strain. So here we'll keep that strain constant and we'll vary the angular frequency from 0.1 radian per second to 100. We'll increase the frequency from 0.1 to 100. So this is how a diagram looks of a frequency sweep. This is the G prime values and these are the G double prime values, that is the storage modulus and the loss modulus values. So here it also shows a more of a solid kind of behavior because your storage modulus is higher than the loss modulus values. We have only done from 100 to 0.1. If we do it more lower, maybe there will be a crossover where we'll get equal value of G prime and G double prime, because for that particular material, they wanted from 100 to 0.1, so they have done for that range. This is all about your, there are also many more tests like the creep behavior, where we see that how a material recovers. Means first we give until a particular shear rate, then we again decrease it. So if we check that whether the viscosity decrease and whether it will again, when we are removing the shear rate, whether it will again regain its original form or not. All those tests are there. But according to your requirement, you do the tests. This is all about the rheology and the static rheology portion.
Does the software already has this the range of shear stress for each of the material?
No, that you need to give. According to your need, you will give that.
Okay, because this texture profile analyzer, there will be a
Yeah.
preset range.
Yeah,
of,
they have a preset.
test.
But here you need, it has a, means it will give a, initially it has some values. According to your material, like now what I did for your demonstration was, I just run it with the preset values. But this person who has done, he or she has done according to their sample, they have changed the values and they have run the test. So according to your need, you can change the values. But you can change within the range of this equipment which it provides.
इसमें कोई blank भी लगता है क्या उसको?
नहीं, no. Okay. Thank you.